So that happened. There's a lot of dialogue going on regarding what I think can be described as a blow-up between President Zelensky and President Trump and Vice President Vance in an Oval Office press scrum this past Friday. They were there to finalize a deal regarding joint exploitation of minerals and rare earths between the United States and Ukraine. However, not only did this deal fall apart, but in the aftermath of the meeting, it is unclear what, if any, relations are going to be maintained between President Trump and President Zelensky going forward. With this video, I'm not going to do a blow-by-blow of the entire meeting, or even the part that is getting deservedly the most attention, the final portion, or even really the aftermath. I think there are plenty of channels and outlets that are covering that portion right now. What I haven't seen as much focus on, and where I would like to try to contribute, is to dive into the earlier part of the meeting with two objectives in mind. The first is I want to highlight the key differences in strategic outlook between President Zelensky and President Trump and Vance, Vice President Vance, I should say, which I think set up the conflict. The second objective will be to try and discern how and where specifically the meeting broke down. Now, I am under the assumption that this was not a planned ambush or scuttling of the talks by either party, as some are suggesting. Given the length of the meeting and the talks prior and the context of the event generally, I don't think it's likely that anybody waited for that specific point during the discussions to throw out all the work that had gone in previously to set it up. Furthermore, I will try and highlight the earlier portions which I think indicate that this was an unscripted and unplanned, I'll call it an event, but really just a breakdown of the talks. With that being said, let's get into it. Quick note, I'll have it at 1.5 speed to save some time, and I'll leave a link in the description to the full unedited meeting. So let's start with the beginning, which I think shows a cordial relationship between the two presidents, at least in a public-facing way.
We had a little negotiation spat, but that worked out great. I think for both countries, I think for the world, actually, beyond both countries. And we have something that is a very fair deal. And we look forward to getting in and digging and working and getting some of the rare earth. But it means we're going to be inside, and it's a big commitment from the United States. And we appreciate working with you very much. And we will continue to do that. We have had some very good discussions with Russia. I spoke with President Putin, and we're going to try and bring this to a close. It's something that you want and that he wants. We'll have to negotiate a deal. But we've started the confines of a deal, and I think something can happen. The big thing is the number of soldiers, mostly at this point, but soldiers being killed. They're losing thousands of soldiers on both sides. We're losing a lot of soldiers, and we want to see it stop. And we want to see the money get put to different kinds of use, like rebuilding. And we're going to be working very hard. But we've had a lot of very good conversations. I will say until we came along, the Biden administration didn't speak to Russia whatsoever. They didn't speak to anybody. They just allowed this to continue. And I will say that, I'll say in front of you, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, if I were president, this war would have never happened. We would have had a deal negotiated for you without having to go through what you've gone through. But your soldiers have been unbelievably brave. We've given them great equipment, but somebody has to use the equipment. They've been unbelievably brave. And we give them great credit. This was supposed to be over very quickly, and here we are 3 years later. So I give tremendous credit to your generals and your soldiers and yourself in the sense that it's been very hard fighting, very tough fighting. They're great fighters, and you have to be very proud of them from that standpoint. But now we want to get it over with. It's enough, right? We want to get it over with. So it's an honor to have you here. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to sign the agreement at the conference in the East Room in a little while, right after lunch. And we'll be having lunch together. We're also discussing some other things, and we appreciate everybody being here. It's somewhat of an exciting moment, but the really exciting moment is when when they stop the shooting and we end up with the deal. And I think we're fairly close to getting that, and an honor to have you. And please, I'd like to say something.
No, thanks so much, Mr. President. Thank you for the invitation. And really, I hope that this first document, will be first step to real security guarantees for Ukraine, our people, our children. I really count on it. And of course, we count that America will not stop support. Really, for us, it's very important to support and to continue it. I want to discuss it with details further during our conversation, and of course the infrastructure or security guarantees, because for today I understand what Europe is ready to do, and of course I want to discuss with you what the United States will be ready to do, and I really count on your strong position to stop Putin, and you said that enough with the war. I think that is very important, Ben, to say these words to Putin at the very beginning of war, because he is a killer and terrorist. But I hope that together we can stop him. But for us it's very important to, to save our country, our values, our freedom, democracy, and of course, no compromises with the killer about our territories, but it will be later. And of course, what I wanted, we spoke about it by phone with you, about the drones production. We have very good drones production. I think the best one in the world for today because of the war. Yes, and of course, we need very much the air defense. You have the best air defense in the world, and really you helped us under attacks of Russia. And I want to speak how we can exchange the licenses. We're open to share the licenses of all our drones with you, of course, with the United States, and we need licenses for quick production of air defense. Even after the war, we need our nation to be calm, that we are secure. So that's why we need this air shield. And of course, about this, I want to speak about the contingents. I think that France and UK already spoke to you, and we know that Europe is ready, but without the United States, they will not be ready to be as strong as we need. And the last point, last not least, about exchange, about our people and children. And you know that these crazy Russians, that they stolen 20,000 of children, Ukrainian children. They changed their names, they changed their families, relatives, and now they're in Russia. We want to bring them back. And really, it's a big dream, task, and goal for me and our warriors. By the way, Mr. President, we exchanged, yes, released more than 4,000 warriors from Russian prison, but there are thousands more in the prison. I wanted to share with you some images, how it's just can I now?
Yeah, please.
Some minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. Just you to understand in what circumstances, in what situation they are, and what the attitude of Russia to our prisoners. That guys, just you before and after. And you see before and after, just you to understand. Now thousands of such guys, ladies and men, there, and that so they don't eat, they beat them, and they it's a lot of bad things. So out of even during the war there are rules. Everybody knows there are rules during the war. So these guys, they don't have any rules. You see that 50, 60 kilograms left, and a lot of such things. And I didn't want to show you what the changes with images of children, because I will just share with you. And I mean, it's looking tragically.
Yeah, that's tough stuff.
Yeah, I wanted very much to give you, and you see it.
Yeah.
This is pastor, by the way. They stolen pastors because it's not Russian church. They stolen pastors and moved pastors to the prison. At the end of last year, we brought 3 pastors, and we could exchange them. And this is pastor, you see.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah,
So to start, we have both leaders laying out their perspectives and purposes. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but a couple of points to highlight. First is that although Zelensky does thank President Trump, it is specifically linked to the invitation generally and the opportunity to speak specifically, but not directly to the aid provided by the United States or the peace efforts currently underway. This will come up later with Vance. Now, he has in the past thanked the United States and Trump on numerous occasions, but that was a specific point that Vance brought up later during the blow-up. Now, we also have Zelensky calling Putin a killer and a terrorist here, something that will come up later as Trump talks specifically about the rhetoric that Zelensky has and the hatred that the two leaders have for each other and how hard it is to get a negotiated deal because of it. Now, a final point, I think we see an attempt at public manipulation here with the photos at the end, with Zelensky attempting to put a human face to the suffering in an immediate example for President Trump for the purposes of soliciting his sympathy. Which is fine, it's a tactic you can use, but it's a little underhanded, but, hey, these are real people, so, it's his people that are suffering, so I can understand the desire to do so. I think he went with this option based on the reaction President Trump had very publicly to the state of Israeli hostages released in the previous weeks from captivity in Gaza, but from my view, the tactic did not seem to work, as President Trump simply took it, at least in the moment, as more evidence for a need to end the war. Now, this next one is a quick one, but I think it shows some disagreement early, but treated in a more friendly manner between President Trump and President Zelensky.
Yes, and we can use it. Use it for LNG. Use it for LNG, and we will do it. And really, we can help Europe because Europe really helped. President Trump said that they made less support, but they are our friends and they are our very supportive partners. They really gave a lot, Mr. President. They did.
They gave a lot, but they gave much less.
No.
Much less.
No. No.
No. Okay.
Some tension there, but they are able to mask it well enough to keep things moving. They're laughing, they're joking. But you can see there might be some tension underneath. Now, here's the next point of tension and open disagreement between the two.
And I don't want to have that. Think of the parents. Think of the whether they're in Russia or Ukraine. Think of the parents of all these people being killed needlessly.
They came to our territory.
Should have never started. If I were president, this would have never started.
Here, it's just a quick remark, but we see Trump focusing on what he views as the needless fighting, while Zelensky interjects, noting that Russia is the aggressor, with the implication that Ukraine's continued fighting isn't needless but necessary and justified. This time, there are no friendly quips between them.
Question to President Zelensky. Do you feel like the U.S. is on your side, that the President Trump is on your side at this moment?
What do you think?
He wants to know, do you think that, sort of a stupid question. I guess we wouldn't be here if I wasn't.
I think that the United States on our side from the very beginning of occupation, and I think that President Trump on our side, and of course, I'm sure that the United States President will not stop support. This is crucial for us. It's important for us. Yes, and Putin, the President, speaks about the people and the soldiers which are dying, but they came to our territory. They came to our land. They began this war, and they have to stop. And I think this is the question, with really the most important question: can President Trump, I hope yes, with some other allies, to stop Putin withdraw these enemies, our enemy, withdraw these troops from our land? And I think that you asked about the history. I think that if President, or when, he will stop Putin, if President Trump will bring peace to our country, I think he will be on this wall.
We've had very, very good talks.
So I didn't show it, but Trump noted he would continue military support to Ukraine after the deal. In addition, Zelensky is complimentary to Trump and notes the enduring and crucial nature of U.S. support. But he once more reiterates the point that Russia, from his view, is the aggressor in this conflict, and the need for U.S. action to compel Russia's withdrawal from Ukrainian territory as the objective, and not merely a cessation of hostilities.
Always make compromises. You can't do any deals without compromises. So certainly he's going to have to make some compromises, but hopefully they won't be as big as some people think you're going to have to make. That's all. That's all we can do. I'm here as an arbitrator, as a mediator to a certain extent between two parties that have been very hostile. To put it mildly, they've been very hostile. It's been a vicious war. It's been a vicious war. You know, it's a very level battlefield, and those bullets go out, and as I've said many times, we're talking about it.
Just a quick note here, we have a separation as Trump is positioning the U.S. as a general neutral arbiter with the goal of ending the conflict as its primary objective. So this next part here, though, I think is really key.
You know, sure, the answer is yes, but hopefully we won't have to send much, because I'm looking forward to getting it done quickly, very quickly.
Does that mean provide security guarantees, Mr. President?
I don't want to talk about security yet, because I want to get the deal done. You know, you fall into the same trap like everybody else. A million times you say it over and over. I want to get the deal done. Security is so easy. That's about 2% of the problem. I'm not worried about security. I'm worried about getting the deal done. The security is the easy part. Security is very nice. Everybody stop shooting. And now will Europe put people there? I know France is going to. I know the UK is going to. I know other countries are going to, and they happen to be right next door. We haven't committed, but we could conceivably. You know, we have security in a different form. We'll have workers there digging, taking the raw earth so that we can create a lot of great product in this country. So in that sense, you have something, but we haven't determined that yet. I will say, in speaking to France, and in speaking to, and they were here, as you know, last week and just the other day, they have committed to a lot of security. I don't think you're going to need much security. I think once this deal gets done, it's over. Russia's not going to want to go back, and nobody's going to want to go back. When this deal ends, I really believe this deal is.
For context, a bit earlier, Trump talked about ending the war as part of his campaign, and he's treating it as a campaign promise to the electorate. Now, the key part here is that Trump wants to focus on the mineral deal first and treat that in part at least as a security deal, figuring out the other details later. Treating both the presence and interests of the United States after the deal having a real investment in Ukraine. I think this is important as it provides not only a tangible benefit in the form of an economic sector that could support the United States, but also will provide some justification to the more isolationist base of the Republican Party, which supported Trump quite significantly, as a reason to help Ukraine now, as the U.S. would benefit in tangible economic terms from the deal. In addition, President Trump noted that Europe would pick up some of the slack as far as security guarantees go, specifically calling out France and the UK in this endeavor. A final note, though, for this section is Trump's view that I think is said implicitly in that Russia would not take further action, I think for two reasons that he points to. The first, which he iterates multiple times, is that he views Russia would not have invaded back in 2022 with him as president, with the implication being that Putin would not have risked conflict with Trump in office, but was willing to do so against others, particularly Biden in this case. The other reason, though, I believe, is indicated by a general normalization of relations between the U.S. and Russia through the Riyadh meeting and other conversations that have come to light. This reset of relations, if we want to call it that, would remove, in Trump's outlook, any reason for Putin to pursue military conquest as a means to expand Russian power and influence. Whether or not these are reasonable assumptions are difficult to test. But I think it is clear Trump believes them to be true. And by his head shake, Zelensky disagrees.
Yeah, so please, about security guarantees and about just ceasefire. We can't just speak about ceasefire and speak and speak. It will not work. Just ceasefire will not never work because I'm like a president. I have this experience, and not only me. Ukraine before my presidency from the 2014, Putin broken 25 times. 25 times he broken his own signature. 25 times he broken ceasefire.
But he never broke to me. He never broke to me.
No, you were the president. You were the president.
He never broke to me.
In 2016, you've been the president, Mr. President. You've been the president, but he had, of course, not with you, but he had during those periods, he had conversations with our side, and we had Normandy format, you know, the France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia, and he broken 25 times. That's why we will never accept just ceasefire. It will not work without security guarantees. Security guarantees, maybe President is right about this document and other, but this document is not enough. Strong army is enough because his soldiers afraid, Putin's soldiers afraid of our soldiers when we're strong enough. If we are not strong enough, if we are empty, if our storage is empty, we can't defend our land. Today, you know, he knows that we have, all the world knows that we have meeting, yes? Why he's using ballistic? Putin today using ballistic on our hospitals, schools, and etc. Ballistic. So he knows that we are here and that President Trump is really have goodwill to stop this war. And you hear now the president. So why he's using? So he doesn't want to stop. He doesn't want. But I hope that we will do it. Really, we'll do it. Security. When we speak about security guarantees, when the Europeans are ready for contingents, they need USA backstop. If there will not be United States, we will not never have any contingents, strong contingents from the Europeans, because they don't want to divide alliance connection between the United States and the main and strongest ally and Europeans. And this is crucial. This is important. That's what we want to speak about very much. This is very important. And air defense. So air defense, really, we have big deficit with all these systems, and we need to provide this. We need it very much. Otherwise, Putin will never stop, and will go further and further. He doesn't want. He hates us, you know? It's not about me. He hates Ukrainians. He thinks that we are not a nation. He thinks, and he shared this thought, I think maybe with your team also, I don't know. But with all the Europeans, in media, officially and not, he always said that there is no such country, such nation, such language, and such life like Ukrainian. No, he really doesn't respect all the Ukrainians, and he wants to destroy us. And you are right, Mr. President. That's 2%. This document, maybe other documents. It's a very good start, very good, but it will not enough to stop this person.
Should Russia take to rebuild?
So here's where we have the clear distinction in strategic outlook, with Zelensky making his rebuttal to Trump's outlook. First, Zelensky paints the conflict as existential, with the view of President Putin not simply wishing to take certain territories, but the goal of eliminating Ukraine as a nation or its cultural identity, as well as a state. Next, he notes that he does not have faith that Putin will be a good faith actor, and that he will break any ceasefires, bringing up past experiences as evidence of this. Here we see another significant conflict with Trump, who asserts that such a thing did not occur under his watch, while Zelensky argues it occurred previously around the time he was president. But honestly, he kind of dances around it a bit here, but it is enough to be a significant rupture from Trump's viewpoint, and another element of tension that has been added to the pile. The bottom line is that Zelensky views, or at least presents his view, as having any ceasefire or peace treaty being worthless, as Putin will simply violate it without direct U.S. backing to give it some support, which would in turn guarantee U.S.-Russian conflict and very plausibly lead to nuclear war, or colloquially World War III. Furthermore, the point that Zelensky is articulating is that any deal is insufficient without direct force in play, and that France and the UK, although willing, are not sufficient. His specific reasoning, though, is that these countries would not risk a war with Russia without the United States backing them up, because such an action would result in a breakdown of the NATO alliance. Which means that, by extension, any security guarantee without the United States is merely a fig leaf and won't yield lasting peace, and really is worthless. Now, the strategic difference between these two men and their views are stark, and the disagreements that follow are not merely personality spats, in my view, but built on a very different overall strategic logic and viewpoints and perspectives that they bring to the conflict.
On the Ukraine
No, I'm in the middle. I want to solve this thing. I'm for both. I want to get it solved. And it's wonderful to speak badly about somebody else, but I want to get it solved. If we can solve it, great. If we can't solve it, they're going to have to fight it out, and who knows what's going to happen. But I want to see it get solved.
May I follow up with one more question about U.S. troops in Europe? After Russian invasion of Ukraine, your predecessor sent additional troops to Eastern Europe, including Poland, my country.
Yeah.
Are you committed to keeping these troops on the eastern flank of NATO in the future?
I'm very committed to Poland. I think Poland has really stepped up and done a great job for NATO. As you know, they paid more than they had to. They are one of the finest groups of people I've ever known. I'm very committed to Poland.
What about Baltics?
Poland's in a tough neighborhood, you know.
What about the Baltics?
The Baltics, they got a lot of, it's a tough neighborhood too. But we're committed. We're going to be very committed, and we're committed to NATO. But NATO has to step up, and the Europeans have to step up more than they have. And I want to see them equalize, because they are in for far less than we're in, and they should be at least equal. You understand that? Why is the United States, we have an ocean in between, why is the United States in for so much more money and other things as Europe? With that being said, and as you said, they've also been obviously very helpful. But we have put in far more than they have, and I think they should equalize.
Mr. President,
Please, go ahead.
I think you're going to say, what changed between the first time and the second?
Not to overstate it, but we see Trump drawing the distinction with the need to work with Putin and not rely on harsh rhetoric as a diplomatic tactic to resolve the conflict. An important side note here, but we see Trump iterating a very strong, including a military component, support to Poland here and his willingness to defend it, and to a lesser extent wider NATO. But he's very keen on Poland. He justifies this support due to both Poland's commitment to NATO defense spending, but also what he calls his admiration for the Polish people. And he enjoyed a very nice relations during his first term in Poland, and very warm welcomes there when he did state visits to Poland. And in fact, the Polish President Duda made a recent visit to spat, which is a conservative political action committee political organization in the United States, showing that there's a lot of political alignment there as well. Now, the key portion is Trump acknowledging that U.S. troops would be used to defend Poland, something Zelensky will seize on later. We also have Trump using the distance of the Atlantic Ocean in his rhetoric, with the separation as reason for Europe to spend more on defense generally and Ukraine specifically. Again, something that will come up later with Zelensky.
The States should not have allowed this to happen. Okay? The United States, run by a man that didn't know much, I'm going to be very nice, run by an incompetent person, very incompetent person, should never have allowed this to happen. I've stopped wars. I've stopped many wars. My people will tell you, I stopped wars that nobody ever heard about. I stopped wars before they ever started. You can look at some of, I could give you a lot of nations that would tell you right now they were probably going to war. I can tell you right now there's a nation thinking about going to war on something that nobody in this room has ever even heard about. Two smaller nations, but big, still big. And I think I've stopped it. But this should have never happened.
Sorry, just a second. About any negotiations. First of all, I want really to tell you, and I think that everybody understands that Ukraine, more than Ukrainians, nobody wants to stop this war. But at the future, any negotiations, it's understandable that two sides of the war, not Russia and the United States, because this is not the war between Russia and the United States. This is war of Russia against Ukraine and Ukrainian people. So these two sides will be at will be at the negotiation table. Then, of course, United States, like the strongest partner of the Ukraine, and of course Europe. I think Europe is very important. I want to speak about it with the president. Yes, Europe is very important for us because we really defend Europe for today. All Europeans really recognize that we are defending the line and they have real life and our people are dying. That's why they helped us. And also it's about the NATO. Yes, between, like the president said, you have big, nice ocean. Yes, between us. But if we will not stay, Russia will go further to Baltics and to Poland, by the way. But first to the Baltics. It's understandable for them because they've been in the USSR. You know, they've been one of the republics of the USSR, and Putin wants to bring them back to his empire. It's a fact. And when he will go there, if we will not stay, you will fight. Your American soldiers. It doesn't matter. Do you have ocean or not? Your soldiers will fight.
Mr. President, would you be willing to visit Ukraine?
Two quick points here. First, Trump views his skills as a negotiator in the matters of peace as not merely theoretical, but as proven time and again, and with a general faith that it is at least plausible that it will work again in this case. Now, the second point here is Zelensky articulating specifically that Ukraine acts as a bulwark of defense for Europe as a whole, including the Baltic and Poland, and that he believes that Putin will attack these regions if Russia succeeds in conquering Ukraine. If such an attack did occur, as he outlined, it would precipitate U.S. involvement in a war with Russia, with Zelensky pointing to Trump's own commitment to Poland and NATO moments before as evidence of this commitment.
Recognizable, there's not a building standing, and a lot of things have to happen.
You have to come and to look. No. We have very good cities. Yes, a lot of things have been destroyed, but mostly cities alive, and people work, and children go to school. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes closer to front line, children have to go to underground schools or online, but we live. Ukraine is fighting, and Ukraine lives. This is very important. And maybe it's Putin is sharing this information that he destroyed us. No, he lost 700,000 people, 700,000 soldiers. He lost everything. Yes. So,
Mr. President, one more.
Here's where things begin to move into personal animosity. Now, Trump is discussing the destruction of Ukrainian cities generally as an impetus for peace, with Zelensky jumping in to contradict him directly on this point. He takes a further dig claiming that Trump has been deceived by Russian disinformation on this point, a claim he made in previous comments as well during an earlier spat prior to this meeting. Without getting into the claims and all that background, the point is that this interruption further adds tension to the conversation that is already very fraught, and we are approaching the boiling point.
Message for them.
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" It doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
I have to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the president of the United States' words mattered more than the president of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
A few minutes later, we have the start of the blowup. It begins with a question regarding U.S. orientation generally towards Russia, and Putin specifically, with Trump noting a need for a diplomatic speech rather than harsh rhetoric as a way to bring about a conclusion to the fighting and negotiations with Russia. Now, Vance jumps in afterwards to draw a stark contrast between the previous administration, which utilized the harsh rhetoric that the questioner was talking about in its policy towards Russia, and the new policy under President Trump. Now, Vice President Vance claims that the failures of the previous administration necessitate a new approach to try to bring about an end to the conflict. And this is where Zelensky jumps in again to challenge Vance directly.
Yeah.
Okay, so he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014 is
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but,
That's exactly
but
right.
yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him. Me, like a new president in 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel. We signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broke the ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with
Zelensky reiterates his claim that Russian past violations of ceasefire agreements in the 2014 to 2022 period, in his description, means that the approach that Vance is articulating is not plausible, and in a direct refutation to Vance, and by extension Trump's proposal generally.
for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering
position to
honest
dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're going to feel very
you will
good.
Feel influenced.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and very
telling you,
strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position.
I
You don't
was
have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What are
III.
you
You're
speaking about?
gambling with
What are you
World
speaking
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
It's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to you.
Far more than a lot of people said
Very
they should
respect.
have.
You said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
you said thank
Even
you.
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of
what are you
America
speaking about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
ask-
I'm not going to replay the whole exchange at the end here, but we have Vance scolding Zelensky for airing disagreements in public and treat them as a sign of disrespect, at least in his view. Now, Zelensky then moves into a personal attack against Vance for not having visited Ukraine and speaking, therefore, from a position of ignorance, and with a return insult by Vance claiming that Zelensky engages in propaganda during these visits, and that brings up a separate issue of manpower shortages as a problem for Zelensky that he is not dealing with appropriately. Zelensky attempts to pivot towards the commitment of the U.S. to Poland as he did before, starting with the ocean comment as part of the setup to move the conversation away from this. But at this point, Trump interjects, and likely as he does not ascribe to the assumptions of inevitable Russian aggression, as that scenario requires to actually come to logical fruition. Also, I think he was jumping in to defend Vance as well. That's kind of he was willing to kind of sit there for a bit, but it seemed like he was less willing for Vance to take these hits without him jumping in. Now, from there, it continues to deteriorate, and I won't break down any further how it goes. As again, there are plenty of others who have done so with bigger channels that can get to that kind of content if that's what you're interested in. So, conclusions though. I think the more important point here is the distinction between the two sides. Now, Zelensky articulates a theory of the Ukraine conflict as existential against an intractable foe who will not act in good faith and will ignore and or violate any ceasefire or other agreement unless facing overwhelming opposition in the form of the United States. He further articulates a view that Russia will continue fighting in the Baltic and Poland after they're done with Ukraine, which would necessitate U.S. involvement. So the argument goes, why not stop them in Ukraine before you have to get to that choice? President Trump, on the other hand, argues that through his approach to negotiating as president, he will be able to create the conditions for a deal. Those conditions being increased deterrence out of fear of Trump's potential actions in any conflict with Russia, and improved U.S.-Russian relations as part of a general normalization, coupled with a tangible and reciprocal investment by the United States to anchor it to Ukraine. The main impetus, though, he articulates is for a cessation of hostilities as the primary objective, versus the full restoration of Ukrainian territorial integrity, which he likely views as untenable. Furthermore, he is concerned with the increased risk of direct military conflict between Russia and the United States, resulting in World War III and specifically nuclear war. In my view, the personal row that we see was the result primarily of differences in strategic orientation between Zelensky and Trump and Vance. However, it is also clear to me that despite several opportunities to precipitate the rupture of the talks, they did not actually fall apart until the very end, and we see a deterioration from disagreements masked jovially in the beginning, changing to an awkward silence and looks of disdain, and then we get to the curt replies, and then we get shouting and personal insults towards the very end. This, to me, indicates a de-evolution in the conversation, rather than some type of planned event by either side that was sprung on the opposition. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. This is Kotow, and thanks for watching.